Friedrich Kunath is an enigmatic presence in the work he creates. He can be seen as part dreamer, part jester, and he creates paintings, sculptures, videos and drawings that he activates into environments, tragicomic dramas through which the viewer walks. Friedrich Kunath was born in East Germany, in Chemnitz, in 1974, and grew up in Berlin, spent some time in Cologne, and then in 2008 relocated to Los Angeles, where he now lives and works. This exhibition is Friedrich Kunath's first solo exhibition in the UK Public Gallery, and prior to this he exhibited widely internationally, including at venues such as the Aspen Art Museum Colorado, the Hammer Museum Los Angeles, and the Sprengel Museum Hanover. The exhibition title, Raymond Moody's Blues, has two references. The first, a pun on the name of the British rock band, the Moody Blues, from the 1960s, but also a reference to the US psychologist and medical doctor Raymond Moody, who in 1975 wrote the book Life After Life, in which he coined the phrase near-death experiences. Raymond Moody became a pop cultural icon on talk shows in the US, and his theories became part of Hollywood movies, part of popular culture. Friedrich Kunath is very interested in this gap between the silly and the serious, the scientific and the spiritual, and the gap between knowledge and fantasy. I think in Kunath's work you can certainly see the influence of surrealism, particularly in the sculptural works such as the giant shoes and loafers and oversized matches. There's certainly a link there to perhaps René Magritte's work, and also in the paintings there's often still life motifs from the history of art, such as vanitas skulls, diaries, but also joined by cartoon characters. There's a mix between 20th century popular culture and the history of art. In Friedrich Kunath's work, there's a strong link to the romantic myth, the romantic idea of the melancholic artist. This is playfully touched upon throughout the paintings, in which there's heroic figures, sometimes sporting heroes. And often in the exhibitions there's a central character who perhaps not is Friedrich Kunath. In this exhibition there's a film piece called You Go Your Way and I'll Go Crazy, in which we see an ageing LA artist sailing, swimming, painting alone, isolated. And he seems to unravel at the seams. It's accompanied by a very brooding soundtrack. And here I think we see Friedrich inhabiting a role, perhaps for himself, but perhaps subverting or playing with the idea of the male ego. In this exhibition, the upper gallery space is transformed into a tennis court of sorts, a zone of play. Kunath calls it an existential playground. And there's quite strong links to his own space in Los Angeles, in that the net that you see behind me here is the one he plays on. The painting behind me, Life After Life, is a large-scale mural work that's a painting but also a backdrop for the rest of the exhibition. It activates the space, it links to the carpet on the floor and the lines cut into that, and also the objects that are scattered around it. The court depicted, in some sense, is the Los Angeles court on which Friedrich Kunath plays and practices, but it's also a metaphorical space. The black surface with the graffiti drawn on by Kunath suggests some sort of divide between one realm and the next. And I think thinking about Kunath's own journey from Germany, from the old world to the US and the West Coast, where there's grand dreams but also epic failures, this is a very strong balance, a duality that runs throughout his work, a balance between old and new, between fantasy and perhaps harsh reality. And you see here the net behind me kind of starts quite crisp as it leads from the court and then unfurls into a slightly abject, failed net. And Kunath's work has always been, for quite a number of years, working with the iconography of the west coast of America, the idea of the place where the desert meets the sea, ultimate escapism, I suppose. But there's also, it's always undercut by a reality or a link to perhaps being alone at that place, confronting nature alone, which links back to the European romantic tradition of the landscape, of Caspar David Friedrich, So there's quite a lot of layered references through his own journey, his own interests, but also his own physical journey, migrating across to the US and living in this space where he works and he lives, but also perhaps still views it with the eyes of an outsider, perhaps from his European bedroom in East Germany in the 1970s. Throughout his work, there's often animals taking on human personas, so sometimes juggling, sometimes playing, sometimes falling over. In some ways, Friedrich is interested in the slapstick and the absurd, and how inanimate objects and animals can personify emotions. So we see a seal juggling, rather than a ball, a form from Albert Dürer's Melancholia. So again, you have the high and the low made manifest, made three-dimensional, and viewers in the exhibition can move through this environment and have a range of different sensations, I expect.